guys, how are you? My name is Emily. This is Emiliabedelia Knits, formerly known as the String Theory Podcast. That's the one and only time I'm going to say that because I don't want anybody to get confused. It's henceforth called Emiliabedelia Knits. Thank you so much to my returning viewers, and thank you so much for checking me out if you're just watching this podcast for the first time. I'm really happy to have you here. My name is Emily. Like I said, I live in Brooklyn, New York with my boyfriend Tim and my kitty cat Lola, who was a troublemaker this week. And this is a podcast about knitting and sometimes a little bit of sewing, although not much, to be honest. Thank you so much to Elizabeth and Karen of Knitting in Our Jeans, another wonderful YouTube podcast, for helping me figure out my name. They suggested something that was a play on M, which is a nickname for me, Emily. And so like that made the bell ding in my head or whatever, where I was like, oh my god, Emiliabedelia, because I want brand consistency in my channels. And like Emiliabedelia is my Instagram handle, EMILIABEDELIA. Follow me on Instagram. And so thank you so much to those two ladies, Carolyn and Elizabeth. I really appreciated your advice and like being able to chat with you and meet you and sort of like brainstorm. So anyway, yes. Okay, so I am wearing a knitted object for maybe the first time on this podcast, and I am so happy with it. So this is going to count as my finished object today. It's the Casco Bay Cardi by Carrie Bostick Hodge. I don't know how you pronounce that. And it is made out of Habu Textiles linen. And I love it so, so much. I'll stand up so you can see it. It's a really, really plain, easy, cardigan. It's written for linen yarn, so I'm not sure. If you've never knit a sweater before, this is a really, really good one to start with. But it is written for linen yarn because I think that like linen has a much different gauge and quality than wool, particularly after it's been blocked. But I love this sweater. It had if you follow me on Instagram, you may know that it had a stain on it up from oil paint. I leaned up against a subway pillar, and those things, like, even if it doesn't, like, don't do that. I don't care how tired you are, don't lean against the subway pillars because they are often not dry, and it has happened to me twice now since I've lived in New York City that I've gotten oil paint on my clothes. Anyway, the other day, I walked into our office and Tim was getting the stain out for me, and it was so sweet because I like am the laziest person about getting stains out and caring for my clothes and blocking my knits and stuff. Like, I'm really industrious when it comes to making stuff, but when it comes to caring for stuff, I'm pretty lazy. And it was so, so nice of him to do that for me, and I was so surprised. So I'm very, very pleased to be able to wear it again right now because it's the end of summer and the weather has been like kind of cool, kind of warm, depending on the day and depending on the time of day. So it's the perfect time to have a linen sweater. The other finished object I have is some hand-dyed yarn that I dyed. And this is one of the things that got lost in the corrupted files when I lost my last video. I talked extensively about the class that I went to that was a hand-dyeing yarn class. It was at Slip Stitch Needlecraft, which is my local yarn store. I got to meet a couple of new knitty friends, which was really great. and I learned some stuff. The class, I will say, you know, was not perfect. There are a few things, constructive criticisms that I have to give, but overall it was a really great experience. I'm really happy that I did it. Unfortunately, I don't think that I'm going to be able to afford to start hand dyeing my own yarn yet because I'm unemployed and broke. But I'm really looking forward to being able to do that. And I was really happy that I took the class because although I could have learned all of that stuff on YouTube, there was stuff that I didn't learn on YouTube already that I learned in the class. And it was definitely like a push that I needed to get over the first hump of, you know, trying and fear of like messing stuff up. It's actually a lot easier than it seems like it is to make things look really pretty. So I'm really happy I did that. I wanted to give a shout out to Diana from Artsy Daisy Designs, who I met there. She has a blog that's got some free crochet patterns, and I'll put the info on the screen here where you can find her blog. She was awesome. Hi, Diana. But the ones that I did end up liking were these two. And it is kind of unfortunate that I lost that footage because this one I showed last week and it was in a skein, and it was, there are a lot of like really pretty gray speckles that are in the middle of this ball that you can't see from the outside, which actually like is really good to know, to have learned. I was like going to totally, this is my favorite one. I have plans for this one too, and I also think it's really cute, but this one is really special to me. I was totally gonna hoard it because that's what I do with things that I really like. I hoard things and I don't use them, which is just as wasteful as wasting something, to be honest. So, but I got this idea for a project to use this for, and so I caked it up, and I discovered through the caking of it that like the speckles weren't on the inside of the skein. So I'm glad that I didn't hoard this because I wouldn't have known to try harder to like get, you know, in the future to get the speckles all the way throughout the skein. And I'm really excited for what I'm gonna use this for, which I'll talk about in a minute. I wanted to say this is, I'm like sort of flying by the seat of my pants with this. I'm not really sticking to the list or the order that I actually, you know, wrote down for this, but I just wanted to say thank you so much to the people who commented, and thank you last week, and thank you so much to the people who have subscribed since last time. You know, it's still only been a couple of people, but like I am really happy to be able to be talking to real people out there on the internet, you know, and I just feel so honored that like you're taking the time out of your very busy day and to hear me talk about yarn. And you know, there's a lot of people doing this out there, so I'm really flattered that like somebody picked me to subscribe to, and so thank you so much. Okay, the next thing I'm going to talk about is my Bronwyn sweater. It's not going to be that exciting. I'm just going to go get it right now. So last time we talked, I was having some real I was having a real existential crisis with this. But I decided to keep going, and I'm glad I did. I mean, it was really just a momentary crisis of confidence. And I find that actually often, like, that's kind of the situation sometimes in the middle of projects. Like, I just have this overwhelming feeling of, like, panic and, you know, not being sure that I actually like what I'm doing. And then once I finish it, I love it. So, I knew that I just needed to keep going like immediately after I pressed stop on recording it. I haven't made a crazy amount of progress, but I've gotten to the point where I am separating for the sleeves now. And I got bored with it, so I put it down a bunch this week. I really haven't put a lot of work into it. But I think that I took enough of a break that I'm going to be able to work on it again, happily. I really love the pattern. As I mentioned last time, I'm not crazy about the needles, and I think that they are particularly annoying. They're Knit Picks needles, the square needles. The cord is really unflexible. The wood is beautiful, but the needle tips are not sharp. And I've been doing obviously a ton of cables, and it's really annoying to do cables with needles that are not sharp. So that's been a bummer, but I mean, I don't really want to, I don't have sharper needles in this size. So there's that. And then if I try my Addies, like the gauge could end up very different because they are metal needles. So that could be not the best idea. So yeah, now that I have it in my hands, I totally want to work on this again, which is a good feeling, a good sign. So anyway, yeah, I'm not really crazy about the needles, but I am going to persevere and I'm going to finish it because I'm going to wear this at Rhinebeck. So the other actual whip that I have on my needles right now is this stripy sock, which I think is so cute. I've added, this is Patton's Croy. You guys have probably seen this before. It's the second sock. So I have this one, and I stopped before I was going to put the toe in because I wanted to do toe socks. And now I have this one. This green, which I'm really happy, I was debating between doing gray and green because I have two different balls for contrast heels and toes, but I'm glad I decided to do green because I don't know, it's cute. That's all. The green is Cascade Heritage in color number 5634. So I have all of these tubes because I take this on the train, or this is like my TV knitting. So I just it's just stockinette tubes, and I was like knitting them to about 12 inches, and I was gonna do toe socks. And I did this one. The toes really didn't fit me, and it was really fiddly. But I was watching, and she was saying the reason that I was going to do toe socks is because, so I eat paleo, and I'm like fanatical about eating paleo. I love eating that way. It's really improved my health quite a great deal. And one of the things like in the paleo community that I have learned is that it's a good idea to wear toe socks because even though like stylistically they look kind of funny, the reason you want to have toe socks is so that your toes can spread out as much as possible. So instead of like walking like this, you're walking like this, because it creates a really good foundation for your body to have the correct alignment, which is really important for health. So I was watching Joy, and she was saying that she lived in bare feet as a child, and so her toes are like this, are like super spread out, and she was saying that she used the square toe because that gave her a little bit more room in the toe area. So I decided that instead of letting these pile up and trying to do toe socks, which are really fiddly and annoying and honestly not that comfortable to wear. This is like, how many times can I say toe socks in one 5-minute period of time? So instead of doing that, I just want to like be done with these socks, because I think it'll just be way easier to make a square toe, you know. And like, most of my knitted socks have a lot of room in them anyway. I don't usually do a lot of negative ease, because I find that the tighter my socks are, the more easily I wear through them, and I have worn through socks, all of my wool socks. So granted, I only had 2 pairs of wool socks, and I've been wearing them almost every day in the winter. I think it'll be easier for me to have more than 2 if I don't get too fussy or ambitious about the form of them. I think that I just need to get this pile done before winter, and winter is coming. Yee. Okay, so I'm going to move on to future plans, knitting plans / dream knitting. Kathy Piccioni, if you're watching this. So this, my hand-dyed yarn, wants to be a baby sweater. I'm going to make, I posted about this on Instagram, I'm going to make the flax sweater by Tin Can Knits. It's a free pattern. And I wanted to have little hearts, so I made this swatch. This is an intarsia heart, and I was not crazy about the way it turned out. And this is blocked, so if it looks this crappy blocked, I mean, it's not like the worst, but I was sort of like, the sweater is top down, so I knit this heart top down. And I was sort of like, well, maybe I need to knit it bottom up to make like this part look a little smoother. And it really doesn't look that bad, but you know, if there's any way I can make it better, then I'll do that. So I posted on Instagram to ask if anybody had suggestions, and the post did well as far as likes go, but nobody actually made any suggestions until like the other day, you know, a week or so past the time that I made that post. Somebody randomly out of the blue suggested that I do duplicate stitches. So thank you so much to that person. You're probably not watching because I don't think that you actually followed me on Instagram, but anyway, she had done a flax sweater with duplicate stitches as well, and it looked really good. So I think I'm going to do that. And I think I'm going to do a couple of different colors, like a little rainbow, like maybe 4 little hearts if I can fit them. And that'll be so much easier too, because it'll be easier to make it look good. If it doesn't look good, I can just take out the duplicate stitches. It's a totally brilliant idea. And yeah, I can just knit the sweater top down and not worry about it. Not worry about the hearts until later. So that's what I'm planning. And the next thing that I am planning to do is a Madewell. Making a swatch for the Madewell. I was having a lot of swatch issues. I made like 7 swatches of this a long time ago, and this is my final one. I just decided that, you know, I'm gonna knit this on size 4 because that's the density of the fabric that I like the most. If, as was the case before, it's still a lot smaller gauge than the pattern calls for, I'll just knit the larger size and hope for the best, because that's all I can really do. I don't want to use this yarn for anything else. I've already bought the pattern, whatever. I'm just going to try to make it work because this has been a project that's been in the planning phase for way too long. And whenever that happens, with that, the same thing happened with my Bronwyn. I made a ton of different swatches, and I just got to the point where I was like, fuck it, I need to cast this on so I can move forward with my life. So that's what I'm going to do with the Madewell too. So keep your eyes peeled for progress on this, I guess. The Madewell is a pattern by Joji Locatelli. It's a shawl collar cardigan. Pretty basic, but it's great. Okay, so the other future / dream knitting project that I have is the Rebel 2 by Knit Graffiti, aka Leslie Ann Robinson. I'm pretty excited about it. I'm going to use my hand-dyed yarn. And then the other thing I'm going to use is this, which is Plymouth. And I didn't realize it, but I don't have it. This one is so soft. This Plymouth yarn is like, it can go on your neck if you want. So, and Plymouth is not made in China. It's made in South America, which I didn't realize. So I feel like if I'm going to be shopping for inexpensive stock yarn, I'm going to go for Plymouth more often in the future than Cascade. It's not that I have anything against China as a country or people from China. Actually, one of my close friends grew up in China, and he's amazing, Michael. But China has very few regulations on emissions when it comes to manufacturing, and it's contributing a lot to the depletion of the ozone layer. And so I am going to try to do my best to not buy things from China. I already do that, but I bought the Cascade yarn before I realized that it is from China. So I'm going to do my best to not buy Cascade anymore. There's my political statement for the day. So yeah, I'm really excited about this. I think I was going to swatch these to see how they go together, but I may not even bother because I just love these have been sitting on my desk and I love the way they look together. I might just cast it on and, if I don't end up liking the color combo, I can always rip it out. Because I feel like with swatching, especially for a shawl, I don't want to waste the yarn because, you don't have to swatch. I mean, supposedly you do have to swatch and it still affects your finished project if you it affects the amount of yarn you need to use if your gauge is somewhat off. And I like to swatch to see how it looks, how the yarns look together. But I think these look really cute together, so I might just jump in. And I think it's going to be my vacation knitting. I'm going on vacation this weekend, so I think I'm going to bring that as a treat to myself. The other thing that I have in mind to cast on is an Inky by Suzanne Summer. And I am planning to do this, but I don't have the yarn yet that I need, so it may not make an appearance on this podcast for quite some time, which is unfortunate. But I made a little swatch to see how these yarns play together, and I really like them. So this is going to be the color scheme of my Inky. So yeah, I've been doing a lot of knitting planning, and that feels kind of exciting. It also feels kind of exciting because I'm noticing my creative process when it comes to knitting, and I think that I feel pretty happy with like the way I choose to my projects because yes, I'm planning a couple of different things right now and I may get stuck in the situation like I was in uh for the past couple of months where I just like have a ton of projects and it makes me stressed out, but I'm being a little bit more thoughtful about it this time and yeah, I feel just like I've been pretty intentional with planning because, you know, there are so many things to knit and so little time. So I think you have to choose kind of carefully. That's what I've learned in the last few months. It may have taken me way too long to learn that lesson, but whatever. I mean, I've learned it, so that's good. All right, so I'm going to move into personal blather or whatever at this point. Um, Last weekend, I went to an event at Nitty City and I met the sockmatician, Nathan Taylor, who is so kind. He just was so. He just came across as so thoughtful and so considerate of everybody who was there. And, you know, not just me. I mean, he was very kind to me, but like what he made an effort to talk to everybody who was there at the event. And I have watched Nathan for a little while, and you know, I he's very energetic on screen, and ebullient, I want to say, or like, you know, he kind of has a big personality on his podcast. Um, so I was expecting that person when I met him in person, but he was just so. Um, he was, I mean, not that I expected him to be unkind, but it just struck me how kind he actually was. He, you know, made an effort to talk to every single person there, and then when he did, he asked them, you know, about themselves, and then really, really listened um, thoughtfully to their answers. So I thought that was so nice, and I'm so happy that I met him. And I made him a project bag, a sock bag, which I felt a little weird about. I was like, and when I met him, I was like, I hope this isn't weird, but I made you a gift. Unfortunately, I don't have it to show you right now because, you know, I gave it to him. But I bought some stuff to make some more project bags. So hopefully there will be more of that in the future. And I want to start an Etsy store because I was thinking I want to, you know, dye yarn and sell yarn. And I still want to do that. But I have all of this fabric. So I can just start an Etsy store with the stuff that I already have and try to make a little bit of money so that I can buy yarn. So that's my strategy with that right now. I'll let you know when my Etsy store is launched. But get excited because I have a lot of cute fabric and I'm going to make a lot of cute bags. I have interfacing, but I'm waiting on zippers, which is really annoying because I ordered the zippers on Monday and they're coming from Manhattan and I live in Brooklyn. So they should be here by now, but they're not. And I'm annoyed about that. So at that event, I met the sockmatician, but I also met Shamika from Mika Mika Knits. I don't know what her podcast is called, but she's awesome. We spent, you know, an hour and a half or something chatting because she lives in Brooklyn, so we like took the train home together. I already mentioned that I met Carolyn and Elizabeth from Knitting in Our Jeans, and they were so sweet. Also, they helped me figure out my name for this podcast. Anyway, but when I met Shamika, like, I felt like such a fangirl and kind of a stalker. Like, I really want to be her friend, but I also I don't want to come on too strong. So I haven't, so yeah, I've been a little bit nervous about that. And I was a little bit nervous at the time. But we chatted a lot about, her podcast. She's also going back to school in the fall for graphic design. So we chatted about that also. But she was so, so, so nice. And I was telling her about, like, how I was feeling frustrated. I was telling her about how I was feeling a little bit frustrated because, I'm like comparing myself to all of these other podcasters who A, have a lot more time, have a lot more money, and B, have a lot more money, and C, have a lot more followers. So, I tend to do that a lot, and I was telling her about that and like how I'm a little bit frustrated with my own level of like productivity lately, and she was so nice and so encouraging. And she was just saying, take it one step at a time and you can do it. And like, I've heard that kind of sentiment before, but just hearing it from her, like, I don't know, really, really helped. And I've been a lot more productive this week because I've just been able to take things one step at a time. I've been doing a lot of job searching this week, so I don't know. It's the worst. Job searching is the worst because there are so many jobs out there, but like none of them are good and are rare. It's rare that they're good. And, yeah, it's just really discouraging. But, I'm just trying to like break it down into small, achievable tasks and take things one step at a time. I have done yoga every day this week. That feels awesome. I created a design portfolio also. So for the last 2.5 years, I've worked at a Broadway costume shop, and I didn't really post any photos of my work because, it's not the designs are not my intellectual property, and producers can be funny about, you doing that kind of thing. So I didn't post anything, but forgive me, I already said this on Instagram, but but portfolios are totally fair use for those images. And I worked on some pretty big name Broadway shows. So I was really happy that I like researched that and figured that out. So if you're interested in checking out my portfolio for sewing stuff, it's www.emilypetersondesign.com. I hope you enjoy it. Anyway, I'm going to Vermont this weekend. Our friend Kelly is getting married, so I'm gonna take my Rebel 2 shawl and enjoy my vacation. And I have a lot to do before we leave, so I'm gonna get going and do that. The other thing that I did this week was I listened to Gretchen Rubin's book, Better Than Before. I really recommend, if you're interested in habits at all. I've talked about Gretchen Rubin on this podcast before. I'm completely obsessed with her content. She has this framework called the 4 tendencies, which is like how you respond to expectations. And I realized that I'm a rebel according to her tendencies, and it has really, really helped me understand myself and like, not feel bad about being the way I am, but sort of like work with what my tendency is in that in that manner. And so she talks about the four tendencies. She's coming out with a book called The Four Tendencies, which I'm really excited about. But I listened to the audiobook version of her book, Better Than Before, which also talks about the four tendencies. And I really enjoyed it. So if you like that kind of thing, definitely check that one out. That's all I have this week. I have to get going so that I can edit this and hopefully get it up by the end of the day. I really am very happy that you guys took the time out of your day to chat with me about knitting and my life. And thank you again for watching. Thank you for commenting. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for pressing the like button so that other people can discover the podcast. I hope you all have a wonderful week. Remember to take things one step at a time. And I hope to hear from you. All right. Take care. Bye.